life. So not like every other brand that is selling you some dream, but they make it in China and then they pay 5 euros or maybe 3 euros, 5 euros with shipping for the product, and you pay 200 euros because it's Gucci, because it's I don't know which fake brand, or maybe it's iPhone designed in California but actually made in China, or maybe now even in Thailand, or I don't know where, Vietnam, somewhere cheap. And we go the other way around because we believe that you are not entrepreneur if you don't make your products. You are just seller, distributor, something like that. So today you will see that we will finish special design with narrow straps. This is for women. This is a classic design with wide straps. Narrow straps, wide straps. We will finish this, we will finish that, and we will also show you special design that has pebbles like this. It's like Hermes model. So it will look like this. You see, you have like sandals, but not really sandals, like slides. Slides is the correct word. So first we need to prepare the straps. I have a system how to make this. We have 1.5 centimeters on every side. So first we go here and we make lines where we need to put the glue on. And you can see I also have Zakistar hoodie. And this goes on the same concept. I don't want to wear some fake brands that are ordering hoodies from China and then I'm paying 50 euros for it. Here I ordered it from China myself and I got custom made hoodies. It's true that the size is not the best, because if I put this up, you see, it's a bit too short. It should be like this. But yeah, at least it's custom made. It should be like 100% cotton. Then I learned that it's hard even to prove if the hoodie is from cotton or not. So I think that fashion industry is the biggest scam. I also ordered some cashmere and some silk, not silk, wool, merino wool. And actually then you realize that you don't even know how to check if this is really 100% cashmere, if this is really 100% merino wool. Basically they can just say something, they can raise the price, and then you're fucked, because I called one laboratory, how much would it cost me to check if this is real cotton, and the test would be like 150 euros. So yeah, it's terrible. Because if you pay 150 euros to test if something is real cotton, then you basically paid a lot of money for Se pravi, desni, če je označevalna stran, na grdo stran usnja. Se pravi, če damo takole gor, evo, se pravi, tale je desni. I have system that I know because these straps are symmetrical. And now I have a sole. And now I need to know if this one goes on that side or on that side. But this one is the right one. So yeah, it's a little bit of it's not that easy, but yeah, what can we do? Now I will make signs where the straps will be fixed. It's very hard to do that. This. Because for every part you need to test. Zdravo, Matija. What's up? I need to speak English in case we get non-Slovenian followers or viewers. But these are slides that I'm making now. So if you don't like flip-flops, you can also get slides. And if you don't know yet, they have pebbles on top. Real pebbles. And now you will say, oh, I don't want pebbles because I wear shoes, so I don't walk on pebbles. But actually, you couldn't be more wrong. Oh, for a second. I was scared that my computer will fall down. And you see my posture is very good because I work on an elevated table. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. It's much more fun when there is a debate going on. Today is very cold weather, so it's actually very good time to finish this. Then I just need to wait for another knife, and next week I can finish the order, because this was ordered by hotel in Switzerland. Very luxurious hotel, very good one. The cheapest room is 800 euros per night. Somebody would care. So I just wanted to say that I make flip-flops for big boys. You know, it's not like some random small order. What the fuck? Ah, they don't have straps. That's why. Yeah, of course. Makes sense now. Now everything makes sense. So I will make four pairs I will make today. Now I finally understand what's the point. These are soles. They're engraved with Zakistar. I will need to clean them a little bit. But here and here. Okay. Next one. Four pairs for ugly day. It's also nice. So first, I will make signs. So if you don't know yet, these flip-flops activate muscles. And now you see the posture is not about the bones, it's about the muscles. Basically everything in your body is depending on muscles. Even blood sugar. I was just watching video about blood sugar and why people that don't eat much sugar have terrible blood sugar, high blood sugar, because your liver is producing sugar. And now if you get if you're not sensitive to sugar anymore, to insulin, liver is just producing too much sugar. That's why. And now it's interesting that sometimes I have a lot of viewers and then the other times nobody. I don't really understand. Last time I had 800 viewers, and this time I feel like I don't have 10. I don't know what's the point. Maybe my profile picture, my build. But like I said many times, the best thing about streaming is that I don't stream for money. I just stream so I'm not bored. But it would be nice if streaming would be like a thing, you know, that people would actually watch and buy. Yeah, but I was telling that I think I have this account from 2019 and there was probably 0 purchases from YouTube. So as much as it sounds very cool, YouTube actually don't bring customers, which is interesting. Of course, if you have a lot of views, then you get share of ad revenue, so you can make money. But yeah, I think it's not that personal connection because commenting is terrible. I don't even know if I can reply in the comments here. Maybe if I... No. I don't even know how to reply in comments. I think YouTube is not that personal like Instagram or TikTok. Because when I was streaming on Instagram, people were joining, it was like a party. Oh, hello, where are you? And always the same people, you know. So it became like a gathering. It's not a random meeting, but it's actually a gathering. So on Instagram you can but the most important thing is that I finish this order. Tomorrow the hotel opens, but again, I will not be able to send it tomorrow because I had some production difficulties. One knife was very small and I have knife for cutting the straps. And yeah, I broke it. So it's not available. And now I'm waiting that they repair it. Hello! They're hiding the truth about AI companies.
So much of what's happening today in the AI industry is extremely inhumane.
But this is me playing devil's advocate. And logically, it could be the case that the civilization that accelerated research with AI is going to be the superior civilization.
No, it's not. This is a prediction that you're making, right?
Elon's making, Zuckerberg's making,
Yes.
Altman's making.
And do you know what the common feature of all of them is? They profit enormously off of this myth. You know, I have all of these internal documents showing that they're purposely trying to create that feeling within the public so that they can extract and exploit and extract and exploit.
So what do we do about it?
We need to break up the empires of AI. You know, I've been covering the tech industry.
Break up the AI. What do you think about AI? Do the product, if it's made with hands, have more value to you? What do you say about that? Let's debate. Because AI or robots, I think it's bad idea. But not because I think that products that are made handmade are better, because that's exactly not what I think. I actually believe that quality is not connected to production method, which is funny, because I was just complaining when the products are made, but we all know how the products are made in specific areas. Do you prefer flip-flops or slides? Now I'm making slides, and I will make, mostly slides.
For over 8 years. I interviewed over 250 people, including former or current OpenAI employees and executives. And I can tell you that there are many parallels between the empires of AI and the empires of old, right? Like, they claim to be intellectual property of artists and creators in the pursuit of training these models. Second, they exploit an extraordinary amount of labor, which breaks the career ladder because someone gets laid off and then they work to train the models on the very job that they were just laid off in, which will then perpetuate more layoffs if that model then develops that skill. And when they talk about that there's going to be some new jobs created that we can't even imagine, a lot of the jobs that are created are way worse than the jobs that were there. And there's the environmental and public health crisis that these companies have created, and how they're able to also spend hundreds of millions to try and kill every possible piece of legislation that gets in their way, and will censor researchers that are inconvenient to the empire's agenda. But what I'm saying is not that these technologies don't have utility, it's that the production of these technologies right now is exacting a lot of harm on.
A lot of harm in AI. I totally agree. Because at the end, the point of life is to do something. And if AI do everything instead of you just kind of lost maybe not the meaning, that would be maybe too exaggerated, but you lost like, I don't even know how to say. Self-actualization, you lost that part. Because now I can help people getting healthier. And I created all of this. I designed this, I developed it, tested, produced, promote, sell, all of it. And now you have AI. And AI creates all of this. How can I feel that I did something if everything was made by AI? If that makes sense. Because I think that the biggest reason for self-actualization is that you feel that you have impact and that you follow. Thanks for like, it's very interesting stream today. I hope you are not a robot, AI robot that we are talking about. But yeah, last stream I got like 5-6 likes in 15 minutes, and now I'm streaming for half an hour and only 1 like, which is okay, totally fine, no rush. I don't chase likes, I just like to see the reactions, because I don't know if the robots can also like. Okay, we prepared. 3 pairs are prepared, 30 minutes, 10 minutes to prepare, so it's better than the regular ones. Okay, now let's go to work. We have some real work to do. First we need gloves, because now, and you see, these muscles, diaphragm muscles, are holding your posture. So now every time I try to remember myself to open these muscles, because when you open these muscles, it corrects your spine. But it's not the point that you go like this, but just like this. And you look much better like that. And you can move in a safer way. So it'd be nice. Okay. I'm running out of gloves. So what do you think about flip-flops with pebbles? And today you can see also slides, which is quite nice. So before summer I can promote all different types of products. We even have pebbles that shine in the dark. So it's basically much more than you can even imagine. Glue, so 4 pairs, bigger size, I will put 100 grams. So for 100 grams, let's put 5 grams of hardener. Yeah, maybe don't even have enough glue. I put 4 grams of hardener. And now let's see how many grams of glue I have. Yeah, I think it will be enough. 100, perfect. That means that all the glue that I did perfect I did good ratio. Because at the end I get enough of hardener and enough of glue. So now I need to, oh yeah, this will be fast. This will be quick stream because this slides it's easier to make. Because for flip-flops you get this under the, so it's harder to put glue because it's not a flat surface, and on slides you have just flat surface. You see, for slides looks like this, and I can put glue easily here, and then I just put straps onto it, on that, whatever. Oh, I have some slides there, so you can see how different. You see, these are one examples. This is how flip-flops looked. Look, this was 10 years ago. Look at the straps. This was all cut by hand. You see the shape, and look the edge, all ugly. Oh my God! This was all cut by hand with this. Oh my God! Imagine that when I started. The price on Kickstarter for this classic pair, I think this pair is even in Kickstarter commercial. I think you can still find Zakistar Kickstarter campaign. So now imagine this. The price was 20, I think it was 20 euros. Okay, it's true that in 10 years of inflation, that's maybe the same as if it would be today 40 euros. But still, if we take in consideration how this was made, oh my God. The whole system was broken. But yeah, when you start something, you don't know what are the costs, what's the profit. I was studying back then. This was more like a side project. So it's really fun to go back in time like that. I was looking at the email, oh my God. One customer ordered flip-flops very soon, 10 years ago. And she sent me email that they fell apart. And after I repaired, I said, okay, of course, it's handmade, my mistake, I will repair. And after I repaired, I got email that it fell apart again. Which means that she said, I will repair it myself, it's okay. But yeah, this part is maybe, it maybe takes longer, because you need to put glue on these edges. You need to be a bit more precise, accurate. So maybe at the end it's not that much faster. Of course it's, oh yeah, I put too much glue now, I realized. Most of this is already done one time, but I can glue the rest. No worries. I see that nobody is worrying. When I was streaming, it was in the evening. No, it was exactly the same timing. I started a bit earlier. Last time that it was super successful. Maybe I shouldn't put my beard on it. Yeah, this one is already done. Okay, not too bad.
On people, but we have research that shows that the very same capabilities could be developed in a different way that doesn't have all of these unintended consequences. So let's talk about all of that.
This is super interesting to me. My team gave me this report to show me how many of you that watch
No,
show
fuck
subscribe,
you.
and some of you have told us, according to this,
Felt very strongly that in order to help people understand the impact of the AI industry, we would also have to travel well beyond Silicon Valley. These companies tell us that
AI, do you use AI or do you prefer using your brain? all good. One time, this will be super fast stream, less than 2 hours. Half of the work is already done, so I just need to do the other half. Ta-da! Oh, why is no one watching? Oh, why no one is watching? Oh, why?
That AI is going to benefit everyone, and that's their mission. But you really start to see that rhetoric break down when you go to the places that look nothing like Silicon Valley, that speak nothing like Silicon Valley, and that have a history and culture that are fundamentally different as well. And that's where you start to really understand the true reality of how this industry is unfolding around us.
Karen, I often try and steer conversations, but in this situation, I feel like it's probably my responsibility to follow. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you, where does this journey begin and where should we be starting if we're talking about the subjects of empire of AI generally, artificial intelligence, and also I'd say one thing I'm really keen to do in this conversation, which is I often see in conversations is left out, is let's assume that our viewers know nothing about AI.
Yeah.
So they don't know what scaling laws are or GPUs or compute or whatever. And let's try and keep this as simple as we possibly can in terms of language, or explain all the complicated language so that we can bring as much people with us as we possibly can.
Yes.
Where should we start?
I think we should start with when AI started as a field. So this was back in 1956, and there were a group of scientists that gathered at Dartmouth University to start a new discipline, a scientific discipline, to try and chase an ambition. And specifically, an assistant professor at Dartmouth University, John McCarthy, decided to name this discipline artificial intelligence. This was not the first name that he tried. The previous year, he tried to name it automata studies. And the reason why some of his colleagues were concerned about this name was because it pegged the idea of this discipline to recreating human intelligence. And back then, as is true today, we have no scientific consensus around what human intelligence is. There's no definition from psychology, biology, neurology, and in fact, every attempt in history to quantify and rank human intelligence has been driven by nefarious motives. It's been driven by a desire to prove scientifically that certain groups of people are inferior to other groups of people. There are no goalposts for this field, and there are no goalposts for the industry when they say that they are ultimately trying to recreate AI systems that would be as smart as humans. How do we even define what that means? And when are we going to get there if we don't know how to define the destination? And what that effectively means is that these companies can just use the term artificial general intelligence, which is now the term to refer to this ambitious goal to recreate human intelligence. They can use it however they want to, and they can define and redefine it based on what is convenient for them. So in OpenAI's history, it has defined and redefined it many times. When Sam Altman is talking with Congress, AGI is a system that's going to cure cancer, solve climate change, cure poverty. When he's talking with consumers that he's trying to sell his products to, it's the most amazing digital assistant that you're ever going to have. when he was talking with Microsoft, in the deal that OpenAI and Microsoft struck, where Microsoft invested in the company, it was defined as a system that will generate $100 billion of revenue. And on OpenAI's own website, they define it as highly autonomous systems that outperform humans in most economically valuable work. This is like not a coherent vision of one technology. These are very different definitions that are spoken out loud to the audience that needs to be mobilized to ward off regulation or get more consumer buy-in into the industry's quest, or to get more capital, more resources for continuing on this journey with ambiguous definitions.
I mean, speaking about different definitions through time, in 2015, in a blog post that Sam Altman wrote before OpenAI was officially announced, he explicitly outlined the existential risk by saying, development of superhuman machine intelligence is probably the greatest threat to the continued existence of humanity. There are other threats that I think are more certain to happen, for example, an engineered virus, but AI is probably the most likely way to destroy everything.
In general, when Altman is writing for the public or speaking for the public, he does not just have the public as the audience in mind. There are other people that he is trying to motivate or mobilize when he says these things. And in that particular moment, Altman was trying to convince Elon Musk to join him on co-founding OpenAI. And Musk, in particular, was spending all of his time sounding the alarm on what he saw as a huge existential threat that AI could pose. And so in that blog post, if you look at the language that Altman uses side by side with the language that Musk was using at the time, it mirrors all the things that Musk was saying. Yeah.
I mean, 10 years ago, Musk was going on podcasts saying, tweeting, whatever, that the greatest existential risk to humanity was AI.
Yeah, and so like his parenthetical, there are other things that might actually be more likely to happen, like engineered viruses. It's because up until then, Altman had been talking just about engineered viruses. And so now that he needs to pivot to speak to an audience of one, to Musk, he needs to kind of resolve the contradiction between what he's now elevating as his new central fear to be the same as Musk's new central fear with what he had previously been saying. So that's why he's like, I think this is now, even though before I said this.
And are you saying that Sam Altman manipulated Musk? Because Elon did end up donating a huge amount of money to OpenAI and co-founding it, I believe, with Sam Altman.
Elon Musk did end up co-founding it with Altman, and certainly from Musk's perspective, he does feel manipulated because he feels like Altman was engineering his language in a way that would make Musk trust him as a partner in this endeavor. And of course, then Musk leaves, and through some of the documents that came out during the lawsuit that Musk and Altman engaged in now, it has become clear that there was a degree to which Musk was actually muscled out a little bit. And so that's why he's left with this very intense personal vendetta against Altman, saying that somehow Altman tricked him into being part of this.
So in 2015, Sam Altman is writing these blog posts saying this is one of the greatest existential threats. At the same time, in 2015, Musk is doing some very famous speeches at the time at MIT. He said that AI was the biggest existential threat and compared developing AI to summoning the demon. And what you're saying here is you're saying that Sam Altman was just mirroring the language that Elon was using to get Elon involved in OpenAI. And later it appears, and again there's a legal case taking place now, that Sam might have muscled Elon out in some capacity.
Yeah, so we know from the lawsuit and the documents that have come out in the lawsuit that Ilya Sutskever, who was the chief scientist of OpenAI at the time, and Greg Brockman, chief technology officer at the time, when they were deciding whether or not to maintain OpenAI as a nonprofit, because it was originally founded as a nonprofit, they decided, okay, we need to create a for-profit entity. But the question was, who should be the CEO of this for-profit entity? Should it be Musk or should it be Altman? Because they were the two co-chairmen of the nonprofit. And in the emails, it became clear that Ilya and Greg first chose Musk to be the CEO. But through my reporting, I discovered that Altman then appealed personally to Greg Brockman, who was a friend of his that they'd known each other for many years through the Silicon Valley scene, and said, don't you think that it would be a little bit dangerous to have Musk be the CEO of this company, this new for-profit entity? Because, you know, he's a famous guy. He has a lot of pressures in the world. He could be threatened. He could act erratically. He could be unpredictable. And do we really want a technology that could be
magic wand, like Harry Potter? You need to be very precise here because you need to put glue in this line here. I prefer to do it with stick. It takes longer, but it's more accurate. And this will be short stream, so I don't care about the length. 1 hour, almost 1 hour. Yeah, I think in half an hour will be ready. But yeah, I think at the end it takes exactly the same time to make flip-flops or to make slides. Like. We need more likes. I don't really understand how YouTube works, because last time I had 5 likes in 15 minutes. And it was the same timing, maybe 1 hour earlier. And then I would expect that next time there will be even more likes. And it's not. Which is very interesting. Now we are making slides, you see. And then we'll also make some flip-flops. So before summer you can see the whole collection. The whole collection that we have. Okay, almost done. Not terrible. I would say that 1/3 of today's plan is already done. And then in the next step, we need to put all of this together. Okay. This goes fast because it's flat surface. but then the straps are a bit longer, so basically the same. It's different concept than flip-flops, but the production is, I guess, the same. You don't need to put anything through, which saves you a bit of time, but I think then you put glue more time on the surface, so it's exactly the same. 5 minutes up, 5 minutes down, bring belly up, bring belly down. Sally. Bring Sally up, bring Sally down.
Be super powerful in the future to end up in the hands of this man. And that convinced Greg, and Greg then convinced Ilya. I think there's a point here. Do we really want to give this much power to Musk? And that is why Musk then leaves, because then the two switch their allegiances. They say, actually, we want Altman to be the CEO, and then Musk is like, if I'm not CEO, I'm out.
So it sounds like Sam again managed to persuade someone to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this begs the question:
What
what do you think of Sam Altman?
What do you think about flip-flops with pebbles? Do you even have opinion? I mean, everybody has opinion. But I think all the viewers are just bots. Nobody's commenting anything. Are you human or are you dancer?
I think he's a very controversial figure.
You did an interesting pause. It's a pause where someone tries to select their words.
Well, this is what's so interesting about those interviews.
Are you human or are you answer? I don't like this part because it's so slow. Ooh, and I also realized that I'm using light because it's so dark outside. It's actually cold and dark outside.
Is people are extremely polarized on Altman. No one has in-between feelings about him. Either they think he's the greatest tech leader of this generation, akin to Steve Jobs of the modern era, or they think that he's really manipulative and an abuser and a liar. And what I realized, because I interviewed so many people, is it really comes down to what that person's vision of the future is and what their goals are. So if you align with Altman's vision of the future, you're going to think he's the greatest asset ever to have on your side, because this man is really persuasive. He's incredible at telling stories. He's incredible at mobilizing capital, at recruiting talent, at getting all the inputs that you need to then make that future happen. But if you don't agree with his vision of the future, then you begin to feel like you're being manipulated by him to support his vision, even if you fundamentally don't agree with it. And this is the story especially of Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, who was originally an executive at OpenAI.
So for people that don't know, Dario now runs Anthropic, which is the maker of Claude. A lot of people probably are more familiar with Claude.
Yeah, and it's one of the biggest competitors to OpenAI. And Amodei, at the time when he was an executive at OpenAI, he thought that Altman was on the same page with him, and then over time began to feel that Altman was actually on exactly the opposite page of him, and felt that Altman had used Amodei's intelligence.
Are you human or are you dancer? That's it. Aha. I got it. This one was never done before. Oh yeah, and you don't need to make holes in slides, so it's a bit easier. But we are streaming, we have fun. Actually, I was just telling one girl asked me, what's my, I don't know, what's my plan for the future or something like that. And I said that just to make flip-flops or to make something in this sphere, like what I'm doing now, this production, I did so many flip-flops that I actually don't care about flip-flops anymore. But
capabilities, skills to build things and bring about a vision of the future that he actually fundamentally didn't agree with. And so that's why people end up with this bad taste in their mouths. And so, I've been covering the tech industry for over 8 years and covered many companies. I've covered Meta, Google, Microsoft, in addition to OpenAI. And OpenAI and Altman it's the only figure that I've seen this degree of polarization with, where people cannot decide whether he's the greatest or the worst.
You mentioned Dario there, and I found it what I found really interesting is to look at how people's quotes evolve over time with their incentives. So I was looking at all of the things they've said on the record, on podcasts, in their blog posts, to see how it's evolved over time. Dario, who was the former VP of Research at OpenAI, and has now moved on to Anthropic, who are taking a slightly different approach to
hello. Do you have any questions about flip-flops with pebbles? Of course, you will say that you don't want to walk on pebbles because you have shoes to prevent that. But also, why do we have gyms then? You basically want to rest. Why do you have gym? So it's basically the same category. Because people need to walk, move, barefoot, active muscles, straight posture. You see, posture is about muscles. And if you forget, if you get lazy, why I didn't check that earlier? I forgot one part. So posture is all about muscles. Everything about the body is about muscles. But I know you don't care about your body because it's yours. Are you human or are you dancer? Okay, now we are done.
Developing AI, said back in 2017, while he was still at OpenAI, that, this is a quote, "I think at the extreme end is the Nick Bostrom style of fear that an AGI could destroy humanity. I can't see any reason in principle why that couldn't happen. My chance that something goes really quite catastrophically wrong on the scale of human civilization might be somewhere between 10% and 25%. And also you mentioned Ilya, who was a co-founder of OpenAI and then left. I guess the first question I'd ask is, why did Ilya leave?
That's a great question. So he was instrumental in trying to get Sam Altman fired. And he's another one of the people who, over time, began to feel like he was being manipulated by Altman towards contributing something that he didn't believe in. And
How'd you know?
because I interviewed a lot of people. Ilya, in particular, had two pillars that he cared about deeply. One is making sure we get to so-called AGI, and the other is making sure that we get to it safely. And he felt that Altman was actively undermining both things. He felt that Altman was creating a very chaotic environment within the company where he was pitting teams against each other, where he was telling different things to different people.
Have you ever spoken to him?
I have so I interviewed him in 2019 for a profile that I did of OpenAI for MIT Technology Review.
And back in 2019, he has a quote where he says, "The future's going to be good for AIs regardless. It would be nice if it was also good for humans as well. It's not that it's going to actively hate humans or want to harm them, but it's just going to be so powerful." And I think a good analogy would be the way that humans treat animals. It's not that we hate animals. I think humans love animals, and I have a lot of affection for them. When the time comes to build a highway between two cities, we are not asking the animals for permission. We just do it because it's important to us. And I think by default, that's the kind of relationship that's going to be between us and AI, which are truly autonomous and operating on their own behalf. And that was in 2019, the year that you interviewed him.
One of the things that I feel like we should take a step back to examine is going back to this idea of what even is artificial intelligence and what do we mean by intelligence. And a huge part of the views of the different people and the quotes that you're reading derives from a specific belief that they each have in this question of what is intelligence, what constitutes intelligence. For Ilya, he has, throughout his research career, felt that ultimately our brains are giant statistical models. This is not something that, we actually know, but this is his own hypothesis, also the hypothesis of his mentor, Jeffrey Hinton, who also was on this podcast. This is why they have such a strong conviction in the idea of building AI systems that are statistical models, and that this particular approach is going to lead to intelligent systems as we are intelligent. It's a hypothesis that they have. It's not one that has been proven by science. And some people vehemently disagree with them on this particular thing. But if you step into their shoes and take on that hypothesis and assume that it's true, that our brains are in fact statistical engines, and that these systems that they're building are also statistical engines that they're making bigger and bigger and bigger until they become the size of the human brain. That's why they say that making this comparison where the system will become equal to human intelligence and then maybe exceed human intelligence is relevant in their framework. And Ilya gave a talk at one point at this really prominent AI research conference that happens every year called Neural Information Processing Systems. It's a mouthful. But he gave this keynote where he shows this chart of the size of brains and the intelligence of a species. And it's roughly linear. The bigger the size of the brain, the more intelligent the species. And so for him, he thinks he's building a digital brain because he thinks brains are just statistical engines. So from that logic, it's like, okay, if we then build a bigger
statistical module. What do you think? Fuck you. Today it's not a good day for streaming, but good day for working.
Engine than the human brain, then based on this chart, it will be more intelligent, and then we will be subjected to the same treatment that we've subjected animals. But it's really important to understand that these are scientific hypotheses of specific individuals within the AI research community. And there's a lot of debate about whether this is in fact the case. And some of the biggest critics say it's very reductive to think of our brains as simply just statistical engines.
Why does it matter to know the mechanism? Is it not just important to know the outcome, which is that it's going to be able to make a video for me, or agents are going to be able to do the work that I do? Does it really matter for us to know the mechanism behind it?
Yes and no. So it matters because these companies, they are driving their future actions based on this hypothesis. So they have decided, we think that this hypothesis is true, like we should just continue building larger and larger statistical models in the pursuit of artificial general intelligence. And that's then having global consequences. Like, in order to continue doing that, they're hoovering up more and more data. They're building more and more data centers. They are having, they're exploiting more and more labor in order to continue on this path. Here's a question that I think is important to ask is, why are we trying to build AI systems that are duplicative of humans? We're kind of having this conversation right now where we've just taken the premise of this industry as a good thing. Like, they said that we should be building AGI, so we say that we should be building AGI. But I would like to ask, like, why are we doing that? Why is it that we are building a technology that is ultimately designed to replace and automate people away? That is not the enterprise of technology. Like, we should be building technology, and the purpose of technology throughout history has been to improve human flourishing, not to replace people. And so this is like a critical part of my critique of these companies and these scientists that have just adopted this goal and have relentlessly pursued it and have had enormous capital and enormous resources to pursue it. Is this the right goal? Like, why are we doing this? Why can't we just build AI systems that do things like accelerate drug discovery and improve people's healthcare outcomes, which are systems that have nothing to do with the statistical engines that they're trying to build to duplicate the human brain?
So why are they doing it? I mean, you've interviewed all these people. I think it's 300 people in total, 80 or 90 of them from OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT. Why do you think they're doing it?
I think it's because they're driven by an imperial agenda, and that is why I call these companies empires of AI.
What do you mean by an imperial agenda? What does that term mean?
Empire is the only metaphor that I've ever found to fully encapsulate all of the dimensions of what these companies do and the scale that they operate and what motivates them to do what they do. And there are many parallels that you see between what I call the empires of AI and the empires of old. They lay claim to resources that are not their own in the pursuit of training these models. That's the data of individuals, the intellectual property of artists, writers, and creators. They're land grabbing in order to build these supercomputer facilities for training the next generation models. Second, they exploit an extraordinary amount of labor. They contract hundreds of thousands of workers all around the world, including in the US, to ultimately make these technologies. We can talk about that more. And they also design their tools to be labor automating so that when the technologies are deployed, it also affects labor rights because it erodes away labor rights. And this is a political choice that they have. Third, they monopolize knowledge production, so they project this idea that they're the only ones that really understand how the technology works. And so if the public doesn't like it, it's because they don't actually know enough about this technology. They do this to the public, they do this to policymakers, and they've also captured the majority of the scientists that are working on understanding the limitations and capabilities of AI.
You think they're gaslighting the public, in a way?
They are, yeah. So if most of the climate scientists in the world were bankrolled by fossil fuel companies, do you think we would get an accurate picture of the climate crisis?
No.
And in the same way, they employ and bankroll, the AI industry employs and bankrolls most of the AI researchers in the world. So they set the agenda on AI research in soft ways, simply by funneling money to their priorities, so that only certain types of AI research are produced. But they also will censor researchers when they do not like what the researcher has found. And so I talk about the case of Dr. Timnit Gebru in my book, who was the ethical AI team co-lead at Google when she was literally hired to critique the types of AI systems that Google was building. She then co-wrote a critical research paper that was showing how large language models specifically were leading to certain types of harmful outcomes. And in an attempt to try and stop this research from being published, Google ended up firing Gebru and then fired her other co-lead, Margaret Mitchell. And so they control and quash the research that is inconvenient to the empire's agenda.
Did you have an example where this is happening to journalists as well, that are asking questions of their team members? I think I was watching a video of yours where there was a young man that was saying he had someone show up at his door, knocked on his door and asked for information, emails, text messages, and this person was from one of the big AI companies.
This was OpenAI started subpoenaing some of its critics, as part of what appears to be a campaign of intimidation, but also what appeared to be a campaign of fishing for more information to map out the network of critics further. But this was a man who runs a small watchdog nonprofit, and they had been doing a lot of work during that time to try and ask questions about OpenAI's attempt to convert a nonprofit to a for-profit. Ultimately, OpenAI was successful in that conversion, but during the period where it was sort of existential for OpenAI to complete this conversion, there were a lot of civil society groups and watchdog groups like Midas who were trying to prevent the process from happening in the dead of night. They were trying to get more transparency. They were trying to have more public debate about this because it's unprecedented. And it was then that there was a knock on his door and he was served papers.
What do the papers say?
The papers asked him to reproduce every single piece of communication that he had that might have involved Musk. So this was like this strange paranoia that OpenAI had that Musk was somehow funding these people to block the conversion. None of them were actually funded by Musk. So in this particular case, their request, he simply was just answered, I don't have any documents because this doesn't exist.
So go back to this point of empires. You were saying that one of the factors of an empire is a land grab, and then the next one was
labor exploitation.
Labor exploitation.
The third one, controlling knowledge production. And one of the other ones that's really important to understand about the AI empires in particular is empires always have this narrative that they say to the public, like, we're the good empire. And we need to be an empire in the first place because there are also bad empires in the world. And if you allow us to take all the resources and use all of the labor, then we promise we will bring you progress and modernity for everyone. We will bring you to this utopic state akin to an AI heaven. But if the evil empire does it first, we will descend into a hell.
And the evil empire being in this case?
In this case, most often it's China. But actually in the early days, OpenAI evoked Google as the evil empire. So all of their decisions were about, we need to do it first, because otherwise Google, this evil corporation that's driven by profit, us as a benevolent nonprofit, like this is a critical contest of who wins.
Do you think the people building these AI companies believe that the outcome is going to be all good now? Do you think they think that it's going to serve everyone, it's going to be the age of abundance, everything's going to go well? What do you think they believe? What do you think Sam believes?
So this is so funny, is such a core part of the mythology that they create around the AI industry includes the belief that it could go very badly. It goes hand in hand. Like, they need that part of the myth in order to then say, and that's why we need to be in control of the technology, because that's the only way that it's going to go really, really well. And Altman has said publicly, the worst case, lights out for everyone. But best case, we cure cancer, we solve climate change, and there's abundance. And Dario Amodei, same kind of rhetoric. He's like, worst case, catastrophic or existential harm for humanity. best case, mass human flourishing. So this is like two sides of the same coin. Like they have to use both of these narratives in order to continue justifying an extremely anti-democratic approach to AI development, where there should not be broad participation in developing this technology. They must be the ones controlling it at every step of the way.
Sam Altman did a tweet saying, "There are some books coming out about OpenAI and me. We only participated in 2 of them. One by Keach Hagee, focused on me, and one by Ashley Vance on OpenAI." He went on to say, "No book will get everything right, especially when some people are so intent on twisting things. But these 2 authors are trying to." You quote retweeted that tweet from Sam Altman, and you said, "The unnamed book, Empire of AI, is mine." Do you believe that tweet from Sam Altman was in reference to your book?
100%, because there's only 3 books coming out about him.
And he caught wind that your book was coming out, and
he knew my book was coming out because I had contacted OpenAI from the very beginning of my process and said, "I'm working on a book now. Will you participate in it?" And actually, initially, they said yes, even though, so my history with OpenAI, I profiled the company for MIT Technology Review. I embedded within the office for 3 days in 2019. My profile comes out in 2020. The leadership are very unhappy. And in my book, I actually quote an email that I received that Sam Altman sent to the company about my profile saying, "Yeah, this is not great." And from then on, the company's stance to me was, "We are not going to participate in anything that you do. We are not going to respond to anything, any questions that you receive." And this was, you know, this was things that they explicitly articulated. It wasn't like me inferring. So I had a colleague at MIT Technology Review that also covered AI, and at one point OpenAI sent him this press release being like, "We would love for you to cover this story," and he was like, "I'm really busy. Will you send it to Karen?" And they were like, "Oh no, we have a history, you understand." And so for 3 years they refused to talk to me, but then I ended up at the Wall Street Journal, where if they felt a bit compelled, because it was the journal, to reopen the lines of communication. And so I started having, a more dialogue with them. Every time I wrote a piece, I would always send them, "Here's my request for comment." I would always ask them, like, "Will you sit for interviews?" And we did get to a more productive relationship. And then I embarked on the book, so I left the journal to focus on the book full time. And I told them right away, "I'm working on this book. I want to continue this productive conversation where I make sure I reflect OpenAI's perspective in the book." And so they were like, "We can arrange interviews for you. You can come back to the office. We'll set up some conversations." And then as we were going back and forth on this, the board fires Sam Altman. And that's when things started going kind of south, because the company started becoming very sensitive to scrutiny. And so then they started kicking the can down the road. And I kept saying, "Hey, when are we rescheduling this? What's going on?" And then I get an email saying, "We are not going to participate at all. You are not coming to the office. You're not doing interviews." And I had actually already booked my tickets. So I was already going to fly to San Francisco, the interviews. And so then I told them, I was like, "That's fine. I will still engage in the process where I'll give you extensive requests for comment. I'll ask through my reporting, I'll keep you updated on all the things I'm finding so that you can choose to comment." I gave them 40 pages of requests for comment, and I gave them a month to respond to all of that. So this was when the tweet came out, was we were doing all back and forth, trying to, and that's when Altman tweeted this. And they never responded to a single one of the 40 pages.
Sam Altman does a lot of interviews.
Yeah.
He's doing a lot of interviews all the time. He's done every podcast. I've seen him on everything from Tucker Carlson to, I think he's done Theo Von, Joe Rogan, podcasts all over the world. I wonder why he won't do mine.
Well, maybe.
I don't know why. I don't know. I think I'm fair with everyone. I just ask questions I genuinely care about. I don't come in with huge preconceptions. I just meet people for the first time. But I've heard through the grapevine that he doesn't want to do mine.
I mean, going back to what you were saying earlier, that with the way that OpenAI and these companies control research, you asked, do they also do this with journalists? I mean, yes, the answer is yes. And apparently they also do it with anyone who has, a broad mass communications platform.
Mm.
It's not just about the conversation that you're going to have with them. It's about who you also choose to platform.
Mm.
And there's this huge problem in technology journalism where companies know that a really big carrot that they can give to technology journalists is access.
Yeah.
And they will withhold that access at the drop of a hat if they catch wind that you're speaking to someone that they didn't want you to speak to.
This is so true, and I don't think the average person really truly understands this.
Yeah.
So this kind of sounds like theory as you say it, but I'm not going to name names here because I don't think it's important. But there's a particular person in AI whose team have basically dangled the carrot of them coming here for like 18 months. And I'm like, you don't have to dangle the carrot. I'm going to speak to whoever I want to, regardless of the carrot or not.
Yeah.
And when this person comes, if they want to come, I'll give them a fair shot. I'll ask them all genuinely curious questions about what they're doing, their incentives. I won't gotcha them. I don't have a history of ever gotchaing anybody. Even if I have a different opinion, I'll ask the question.
Yeah.
But they dangle carrots and they say,
yes.
well, he's thinking about it. Let's think about a date. And what the strategy is, and I don't think they think most people don't understand, is if we just dangle it for long enough, then they will perform in the way that we want them to do, and they'll be pleasant about us. They won't be critical. They won't
They won't platform our critics.
And I think a lot of their game is just dangle the carrot forever.
Yes, yeah.
That's like the optimal outcome. Is if we just dangle it, if we just tell them, we're just looking at the schedule, it just doesn't work. I think in the modern world, you just have to go there and give your opinion and allow the clash of ideas in the public forum. Let the viewers decide for themselves what they think.
Yeah, but this is such a huge part of their machinery, is the way that they use these tactics to massage the public image of these companies and make sure that information that they don't want out, and even opinions that they don't want out there, go out there. Mm-hmm. And so this is I feel very lucky now that OpenAI shut the door early on me. Mm-hmm. At the time, I didn't feel lucky. I felt like I had screwed myself over. Yeah. I was like, should I have been nicer to them in the profile so that I could maintain access? Which is a horrible question to ask as a journalist, right? Like, you're supposed to report the truth, and you're always supposed to report in the interest of the public. Like, that is the point of journalism. And in that moment, I was like relatively junior in my career. I was like, did I misunderstand what journalism is about? Like, should I have actually been playing the access game? Mm-hmm. But it was too late. I had the door shut to me. And so I had to build my career understanding that the front door was never going to be open. Yeah. And that actually really strengthened my own ability to just tell it like it is. Like, and just report what I see are the facts being presented to me, irrespective of whether the company likes it or not. And most often the company really does not like it, but I can continue to do the work. They don't need to open the front door for me. I was still able to do more than 300 interviews.
So Sam Altman gets kicked off the OpenAI executive team. Did you find out why that happened?
Yeah. There's a scene-by-scene recounting.
From who?
I can't remember the exact number of sources, so I don't want to misquote myself, but it was around 6 or 7 people that were directly involved or had spoken to people directly involved in the decision-making process. So Ilya Sutskever is seeing these serious concerns about the way that Altman's behavior is leading to bad research outcomes and poor decision-making at the company. He then approaches a board member, Helen Toner.
Ilya, for anyone that doesn't know, is the co-founder we mentioned earlier, the co-founder of OpenAI we mentioned earlier.
Yes. And he kind of does a bit of a sounding board thing to Helen just because Ilya's freaking out. He's been like sitting on these concerns for a while, and he's like, if I tell this to someone, this could also be really bad for me if Altman finds out. And so he asks for a meeting with Toner, and in that first meeting, he's like he barely says a thing. He's just like dancing around trying to figure out, hey, is this someone that I can maybe trust to divulge more information?
And Toner's role and responsibilities at OpenAI were?
She was a board member.
Just a board member.
Yeah, and specifically an independent board member. Okay. So OpenAI, when it was a nonprofit, the board was split between people who had a financial stake in the company, and then people who were fully independent. And this was meant to be a structure that would balance the decision making to be in the benefit of the public interest rather than to be in the benefit of the for-profit entity that OpenAI then created. And Ilya, as a non-independent board member, was approaching Toner as an independent board member to try and see whether or not she was potentially seeing or hearing the same things that he was about the effect that Altman was having on the company. This then sets off a series of conversations, first between Ilya and Helen, and then between Samir Murati and some of the board members. Samir Murati was, at that point, the chief technology officer of OpenAI, where these two senior leaders, essentially through these conversations and through documentation that they're pulling together, like emails, Slack messages, and so forth, they convey to the independent board members, 3 independent board members, we are very concerned about Altman's leadership. Like, he is creating too much instability at the company, and it is like he is the root of the problem. It's not, they were trying to say to these independent board members, like, the problem will not be fixed unless Altman is removed because of the way that he's pitting teams against each other and creating this environment where people are unable to trust each other anymore, and they're competing rather than operating on this really, really important technology.
When you say instability, that's quite a vague term. That could mean lots of things. Like, instability could mean pushing people hard to work harder.
Right.
What do you mean by instability in specific terms as you can possibly say them?
When ChatGPT came out in the world, OpenAI was wholly unprepared.
Yeah.
They didn't think that they were launching a gangbusters product.
Yeah.
They thought they were releasing a research preview that would help them get the data flywheel going, collect a bunch of data from users that would then inform what they thought would be the gangbusters product, which was a chatbot using GPT-4, and ChatGPT was using GPT 3.5. And because of that, there were servers crashing all the time because they had to scale their infrastructure, faster than any company in history. And there were all of these outages. They were trying to also hire faster than any company in history to try and have more personnel there. And they were then sometimes hiring people that they were like, actually, we made a mistake. We shouldn't have hired you. So they were firing people left and right. And people were just disappearing off of Slack. And that's how their colleagues would learn that they were no longer at the company. And so it was, yes, like many fast-growing companies, a very chaotic environment, and a particularly chaotic environment because it was extra fast. Like, they had to accelerate more than any other startup. And on top of that, Mira Murati and Ilya Sutskever felt that Altman was making it worse. Like, he was not actually effectively ameliorating the circumstances of the chaos. He was actually sowing more chaos, getting these teams to be more divided. And this is where it's important to understand that the executives and the independent board members, they're all operating under this idea that they're building AGI, and that AGI could either be devastating or utopic to humanity. And so it's not, yes, it's like any other company, and no, it's not like any other company. You cannot have, like, in their view, you cannot have this degree of chaos as the pressure cooker for creating a technology that they, in their conception, could make or break the world. And so that is basically what the independent board members also begin to reflect on. They have these conversations amongst themselves where they're like, well, based on what we're hearing about Altman's behavior, like if this was an Instacart, would that warrant firing him? And they concluded, maybe not. But this is not Instacart. And that's why they were like, well, crap, maybe this does rise to the bar where we should consider replacing him, because we are ultimately building a technology that we think could have transformative impacts, either in the positive or negative direction. And so that is what happens. It's like these two executives, and then the independent board members also, they were hearing other feedback as well from their connections within the company, with other people in the industry. At one point, Adam D'Angelo, who is one of the independent board members and the CEO of Quora, which is a tech startup in the Valley, he is at a party in San Francisco, and he starts to hear some of these rumors that there's something weird about the way that OpenAI has structured its OpenAI Startup Fund, which was this fund that the company had created to start investing in other startups. And he realizes they'd never really seen documentation about how the startup fund had been set up from Altman. And finally, they get the documents, and it turns out that OpenAI Startup Fund is not OpenAI's startup fund. It's Altman's startup fund. And this was something, like one of several experiences the independent board members were also having, where they're like, there's something not right about the fact that there continuously are inconsistencies between the way that Altman is portraying what is being done versus what is actually being done. And so when these two executives approach the board, or the independent board members, then they're like, okay, this lines up with also the experiences that we've been having. And at that point, they then have this series of very intense discussions where they're meeting almost every day, talking about, should we actually really consider removing Altman? And in the end, they conclude, yes, we should. And if we're going to do it, we need to do it quickly, because they were very concerned that the moment that Altman found out, his persuasive abilities would make it impossible to do. And so they end up firing Altman without telling anyone. They don't talk to any stakeholders to get them on the same page. Microsoft gets a call right before they execute the action saying, we're going to fire Altman.
And Microsoft, for anyone that doesn't know, are a lead investor in OpenAI at the time.
Yes, one of the only investors in OpenAI at the time. And that is what then devolves the whole thing, because every single person that is affected by this decision is now extremely angry that they were not involved. And that is what then creates this campaign to bring Altman back, and then Altman is reinstalled as CEO days later.
This company that I've just invested in is growing like crazy. I want to be the one to tell you about it because I think it's going to create such a huge productivity advantage for you. Whisperflow is an app that you can get on your computer and on your phone, on all your devices, and it allows you to speak to your technology. So instead of me writing out an email, I click one button on my phone and I can just speak the email into existence. And it uses AI to clean up what I was saying. And then when I'm done, I just hit this one button here and the whole email is written for me. And it's saving me so much time in a day because Whisper learns how I write. So on WhatsApp, it knows how I am, a little bit more casual. On email, a little bit more professional. And also, there's this really interesting thing they've just done. I can create little phrases to automatically do the work for me. I can just say Jack's LinkedIn, and it copies Jack's LinkedIn profile for me because it knows who Jack is in my life. This is saving me a huge amount of time. This company is growing like absolute crazy. And this is why I invested in the business and why they're now a sponsor of this show. And Whisperflow is frankly becoming the worst kept secret in business, productivity, and entrepreneurship. Check it out now at Whisperflow, spelled WISPRFLOW.ai/.
How do you like?
It will be a game changer for you. There's a phase a lot of companies hit where they're no longer doing the most important thing, which is selling, and they get really bogged down with admin. And it's often something that creeps up slowly, you don't really notice until it's happened. Slowly, momentum starts to leak out. This happened to us, and our sponsor Pipedrive was a fix I came across 10 years ago. And ever since, my teams across my different companies have continued to use it. Pipedrive is a simple but powerful sales CRM that gives you the visibility on any deals in your pipeline. It also automates a lot of the tedious, repetitive, and time-consuming parts of the sales process, which in turn saves you so many hours every single month, which means you can get back to selling. Making that early decision to switch to Pipedrive was a real game changer, and it's kept the right things front of mind. My favorite feature is Pipedrive's ability to sync your CRM with multiple email inboxes so your entire team can work together from one platform. And we aren't the only ones benefiting. Over 100,000 companies use Pipedrive to grow their business. So if something I've said resonates, head over to pipedrive.com/CEO, where you can get a 30-day free trial, no credit card or payment required. How does a CEO of a major company get fired by the board because board members, there's a quote in your book on page 357 where you say about Ilya saying, "I don't think Sam is the guy who should have the finger on the button for AGI." Now, I ask myself this question. I work with lots of people here. We have 150 people that work in this business, and those people know me best.
Yeah.
They see me on camera, they see me off camera. So if they said that we don't think Stephen is the right person to host the Diary of a CEO, for example,
Yeah.
it would take a lot for them to say that.
Yeah.
They must have seen some shit off camera for them to go, we don't think he's the right person to be on camera.
Yeah.
Or for whatever reason. And in the case of AI, which is much more consequential than a podcast that is, filmed in my old kitchen, it almost sends a chill down one's body to think that the co-founder of a business has gone to the board and said, this isn't the guy to lead this consequential
And it wasn't just Ilya. Mira Murati then also said, I don't think Altman is the right guy.
And then they both left later.
So then Altman comes back, and lo and behold, Ilya never comes back. So his concerns about the fact that Altman finding out would be bad for him manifested. He ended up not coming back, and Mira Murati then left shortly thereafter.
Quite a lot of these people leave, don't they? OpenAI.
They do. So if you consider one of the origin stories of OpenAI is this dinner that happened at the Rosewood Hotel, which is a very swanky hotel right in the heart of Silicon Valley, that was one of Elon Musk's favorites whenever he was coming up from LA to the Bay Area. And there was this dinner that was there where Altman was intending to recruit the OG team that would start OpenAI. So he's kind of telling everyone, you might have a chance to meet Musk because Musk's going to come to this dinner, and he cold emails Ilya and gets Ilya to then come and Ilya specifically wants to come because he wants to meet Musk. And he also emails all these other people, including Greg Brockman, Dario Amodei.
These are all people that end up working at OpenAI.
And they almost all of them, not every one of them, but almost all of them end up working at OpenAI.
And leaving.
Almost all of them end up leaving, specifically after they clash with Altman.
And Ilya, he left and launched a company called Safe Superintelligence.
Yeah.
Which is, that's an indirect if I've ever heard one. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? If someone like co-founded this podcast with me and then they left and started a podcast called Safe Podcasting, I'd take that as a slight. I'd have people knocking on their door and asking for their texts.
One of the things that is happening here is it is not a coincidence that every single tech billionaire has their own AI company.
Mm-hmm.
They want to create AI in their own image. And that's why they keep not getting along. And in fact, it's not just don't get along. They end up hating each other after working together. Mm-hmm. And then splinter off into their own organizations. So after Musk leaves, he starts XAI. After Dario leaves, he starts Anthropic. After Ilya leaves, he starts Safe Superintelligence. After Mira leaves, she starts Thinking Machines Lab. They want to have control over their own vision of this technology. And the best way that they have derived from their experiences of trying to put their vision into the arena is by creating a competitor and then competing with OpenAI and with all the other companies out there.
Do you think some of these AI CEOs realize that they are quite literally summoning the demon, as Elon said 10 years ago, but they don't really care, because being the person that summoned the demon makes you consequential and powerful and historical, even if the outcome is potentially horrific, even if there's like a 20% outcome of it being horrific. I remember, I think it was Dario, he's the one that said there's somewhere between a 10% and 25% chance of things going catastrophically wrong on the scale of human civilization. 25% is a 1 in 4 chance. If you put bullets in a 4-chamber revolver and said, Stephen, the upside is you could become a multi-gazillionaire and be remembered forever. The downside is that there would be a bullet in your head. There is no chance that I would take that bet with a 25% potential chance of things going catastrophically wrong.
So I have a very long answer to this, because do they know if they're summoning the demon? It really depends on what we define as summoning the demon. And in this particular case, to go back to what we were saying before, there's a mythology that the AI industry uses where summoning the demon is an integral part of convincing everyone that therefore they can be the only ones that are developing this technology.
I got it. So on one end, you've got to say, if we don't, China will, and that's terrible.
Yeah.
But if we let anyone else do it other than me, then we're fucked as well.
Exactly.
So that means that I have to do it, and you have to give me money and support.
Exactly. So when they're saying these things, we should understand it as not as like a genuine prediction based on what they're seeing, because first of all, we don't predict the future, we make it. We should understand this as an act of speech to persuade other people into believing that they should cede more power, more resources to these individuals. And so do they know that they're summoning the demon? I mean, they're purposely trying to create this feeling within the public that they are, because it is a crucial part of their power. But if we were to define just, do they realize that the things that they're doing are having already really harmful impacts all around the world on vulnerable people, vulnerable communities, vulnerable countries? That's where I'm like, maybe yes, maybe no, and they don't really care. Because in the frame of mind, like, I sometimes use the analogy that the AI world is like Dune.
Dune, for anyone that doesn't know Dune.
Science fiction epic written by Frank Herbert, and it's set in this intergalactic era where there are all of these houses and they're fighting each other for spice. So it's a callback to colonialism and empire. And they all are trying to control the spice. But one of the features of this story is that there are these myths that are seeded on the different planets about a religious myth, basically, about the coming of the Messiah, that are used as ways to control the people. And Paul Atreides, when he arrives at the planet Arrakis with the intention of trying to then fight against the Empire and avenge his father's death, he steps into a myth that has been seeded on this planet that says that one day there will be a Messiah that comes and saves the planet. So he steps into the role of the Messiah and leans into this idea in order to better control the people and rally them behind him as a leader to help with this quest. He knows that it's a myth in the beginning, but because he lives and breathes and embodies it, it kind of starts to blur in his mind whether this is really a myth or whether he's really the Messiah. And this is what I think happens in the AI world. On one hand, there are all these executives that actively engage in myth making because, I have all these internal documents that I write about in the book where they are very keenly aware of how to bring the public along with them by showing them dazzling demonstrations of the technology, by crafting a mission that will sound really good and make people give more leniency to their companies. So they know they're doing the myth making. And also, I think many of them lose themselves in the myth because they have to live and breathe and embody it day in and day out. And so when, Dario says he thinks that 10 to 25% of the future could be catastrophic, or whatever the probability is, 10 to 25%, he is actively engaging in the myth making, but also he's losing himself in the myth. Like, I think if you were to ask him, do you genuinely believe that? He would be like, yes, I genuinely believe that. Because there's been a blurring of when he's saying something just to say something versus when he actually believes what he's required to believe in order to then continue doing the things that he's doing.
And this is the whole psychology of cognitive dissonance, right? Where the brain struggles to hold two conflicting worldviews at the same time, so it's incentivized, or it endeavors to dismiss one. So if you wanted to be a healthy person but also a smoker, and I pointed out smoking's bad for you, the first words out of your mouth are going to be yes, but
Exactly.
helps me with stress.
Yeah.
Yes, but I only do it when I think, I don't know, I kind of see that at the moment because these companies have to raise extortionate, like huge amounts of money to fund their AI research, and they're building out all of these data centers. So when they're out in the public, they're always fundraising. All of these major companies are fundraising all the time at the moment. So you can't be fundraising and saying, I'm going to destroy your children's future, potentially. There's 25% chance that your children aren't going to have a great life, which might be the truth.
I mean, that is actually what they say. This is what famously Dario Amodei does.
He does that. But the others, Sam's not doing that as much anymore.
Yes, and it's because, it goes back to like each of them kind of distinguish themselves a little bit as the brand that they need to project.
Do you think any of them have a stronger moral compass than others? Because I think Dario often gets the credit for having more of a backbone and being more conscious of implications.
He does get a lot of credit for that.
He's from Claude and Anthropic, for anyone that doesn't know.
I don't think it truly matters, the answer to that question, because to me, even if you were to swap all of the CEOs for someone that people would say is better at running these companies, it doesn't fix the problem that I identify in the book, which is that there is a system of power that has been constructed where these companies and the people running these companies get to make decisions that affect billions of people's lives around the world, and those billions of people do not get any say in how it goes.
Those people, they can go to the polls, right? So if the public are sufficiently educated, they can go to the polls and pick a leader that says they're going to legislate or pass laws or try and pass laws.
Yes. But at the speed and pace at which these companies operate, and at the sheer scale and size, they're able to also spend extraordinary amounts of money, hundreds of millions in this upcoming midterms, to try and kill every possible piece of legislation that gets in their way and craft legislation that would codify their advantage. And so, to me, I think sometimes as a society we obsess a little bit with, are these leaders good or bad people? And to me, the bigger question is the governance structure that we've created a sound one, or that allows for an anti-democratic one that has consolidated this decision-making power in the hands of the perfect? I don't care who is at the top of these companies. They're not going to have the ability to make decisions on behalf of so many people around the world who live and talk and have a culture and history that are fundamentally different from them without things going wrong. And so that is why throughout history we've moved from empires to democracy. It's because empire as a structure is inherently unsound. It does not actually maximize the chances of most people in the world being able to live dignified lives.
I'm going to try and take on that point of view. So this is me playing devil's advocate. Okay. But Karen, if the US don't continue to accelerate their research with AI, at some point, China's model is going to become so smart and intelligent that we're basically going to have to rent it off them, and we're going to be, they'll get the scientific discoveries, they'll discover the new era of autonomous weapons, and we will be their backyard. And logically, that argument does appear to be pretty true.
No, it's not.
If we scale up, if we just imagine any rate of change with this intelligence, at some point, we're going to come to a weapon that could theoretically disable all of the United States electricity, their weapons systems. It will know exactly how to disable the United States from a cyber perspective because it would be that smart. All you've got to imagine is any rate of improvement over any period, any sort of long period of time. So this is a theory that might be true. And if it's true...
I mean, yeah, any theory might be true.
but you know, again, going to this point of like, even if it's a small percentage, it's worth paying attention to on the other side of the foot. This is a theory that people talk about. It could be the case that the most intelligent civilization is going to be the superior civilization. Logically, that's a pretty sound thing to say, no?
So there's a lot of fundamentals in this argument that would need to be true in order for this to be a viable argument, and let's knock them down one by one. So the first one is that these systems are intelligent, and that just scaling them is going to bring us more intelligence.
So far, so true?
No, it's actually not, because first of all, again, we don't actually know if these systems are, like, intelligence is not, it's not like the right analogy, almost. It's sort of like, it's like, is a calculator can do math problems faster than a human. Does that make it intelligent?
It has a narrow intelligence because it's solving a narrow problem, which is like 1 + 1 = 2. But...
And these systems, they actually also are quite narrowly intelligent, in the sense that even though these companies say that they're everything machines that can do anything for anyone, they actually can only do some things for some people. This is like the jagged frontier of these AI models. Like, some of the capabilities are quite good, other capabilities are not that good. You know why that happens? It's because the company can only focus on advancing certain types of capabilities. It can't literally focus on advancing all types of capabilities. They have to actually set their mind to advancing a certain, by gathering the data that's needed for that capability, by taking, getting a bunch of human contractors to annotate and train the model to do that exact thing. And so scaling these models is actually a perpendicular question to, are we actually getting more cyber capabilities specifically and more military capabilities specifically?
I would argue that most of the top people in AI believe that the intelligence is going to continue to scale for some time. A lot of them do, like Jeffrey Hinton does.
And again, it's back to his hypothesis about how human intelligence works and what the appropriate model of the brain is. His hypothesis throughout his career has been the brain is a statistical engine. Mm-hmm. But that's his hypothesis, and that is not universally agreed upon, especially among people that are not in the AI world. When you talk with neuroscientists and psychologists, people who actually study human intelligence and the human brain, that is where you start to get a lot of debate and disagreement about this particular view that Hinton has. And so
how do you like slides?
This is kind of like one of the things is like, AI is already being used in the military and has been used in the military for a long time, but it's specifically accelerating large language models isn't just the only path for getting military capabilities. Like, the companies would have to choose to specifically pick military capabilities to accelerate, not just like general intelligence. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they create this myth that they are actually pushing the frontier of all of the capabilities of the model, but that's not what's actually happening internally. And I had hundreds of pages of documents on like how they were specifically training models. They pick what capabilities they want to advance. And you know how they pick them? It's based on which industries would be able to pay them the most money for their services. So they pick finance, law, medicine, healthcare, commerce. It's not actually intelligent like a baby, where the more that the baby grows up, they start having these general abilities.
I think I have jagged intelligence. I'll be honest. I wasn't going to say it, but I think I know a little bit about. I know a lot about a little bit.
Yeah, but you also have the capability to learn and acquire knowledge by yourself, and you also have the ability to choose what you're going to learn and acquire by yourself.
It's not easy, and it takes a lot more time than these models, it seems. Less compute. But...
And you can learn how to drive in one place and then immediately know how to drive in another place. These models cannot do that. Every time a self-driving car is shifted to another location, it has to completely retrain on that location. Just like all the self-driving cars. I mean, we're sitting in Austin right now, and there's all these self-driving cars that are driving through Austin.
But
They-
when one of them learns, they all learn, which is
it's just across all self-driving
which is a
cars.
big advantage. Because if one Optimus robot learns one thing in one factory, they all learn it. And imagine that. Imagine if humans, if we all learned what all the other humans learned. That would give us such an unbelievable competitive advantage. I mean, one of the ways we did that is through
Or it
communication.
could not, because they could be learning the wrong thing, which has also happened again and again with these technologies, is that all of them then learn the wrong thing and they all have the same failure mode. I mean, part of the resilience of human society is that we do have different expertises and we also have different failure modes.
I think sometimes we hold AI models to a higher standard than we hold humans to. And in a weird way, because I'd hear on stage, we're in Austin at the moment, and I'd hear people go, but, you know, them AI models, they hallucinate sometimes. I'm like, have you met a human? Like, I hallucinate all the time. I can barely spell or do math. So...
Yes, but it's once again like using this analogy that was specifically picked in the early days of the field as a way to market these technologies. Like, we're repeatedly using the intelligence analogy and relating these machines to human intelligence as a way to try and gauge whether or not it is good or worthy or capable in society.
I think the output is the thing that really is the most consequential, which is like, okay, it might have a different brain and a different system, but does it arrive at the same capability? Like, is it able to do surgery on someone's brain? Is it able to drive a car? Like, my car drives itself in Los Angeles. I don't touch a steering wheel, and I can drive for many, many hours. And here in Austin, I just saw the ones the other day where they've removed the steering wheel and the pedals, the new cybercabs. So I go, it doesn't really matter if it's using a different system. If it's navigating through the world as a car, it has a better safety record than human beings. Then, as far as I'm concerned, intelligence or not, it's like...
Yes,
you know,
but that was not the original argument that you made, which was like, these systems are just generally going to become more intelligent across different things based on the prediction. This is a prediction that you're making, right? Like that. And this is a prediction that all of the AI...
Ilya's making, Daria's making,
all...
Elon's making, Zuckerberg's making, Altman's making, Dennis is making.
And do you know what the common feature of all of them is? They profit enormously off of this myth.
Elon has recently spearheaded the construction of Colossus, a massive supercomputer in Memphis housing 100,000 GPUs specifically to scale up their Grok API models faster than their competitors. It appears that they've all converged around this idea that you can brute force your way to greater, more generalized intelligence.
They've converged around the idea that you can brute force your way into models that they can sell to people for automating certain tasks that are financially lucrative.
And I heard Elon say that if you're a surgeon now, there's just no point. He was like, don't train to be a surgeon. He says, in a couple of years' time, Optimus and AI generally are going to be better than any surgeon that's ever lived.
Yeah.
Do you think these things are true?
Well, I'm pretty sure it was Hinton that famously/infamously said there would be no need for radiologists anymore.
Oh.
There would be no need for radiologists anymore he set a deadline that we've already passed. I don't remember how many years. Radiology isn't great as a profession.
Do you think?
Zdaj ga damo pa v mašino. We'll put this into this machine. And we get